Welcome to Journey Home Meditation's morning sit. Today we're going to share a little bit of a breathing practice, and I'll have some contemplation on some ideas and some teachings that I've experienced. And we'll have a bit of poetry as well. And as always, I am very happy to be here today. It has been some time since I was able to be in this space. And sometimes since I was able to feel at ease in this practice. So I'm happy to be sitting here today sharing this morning sit with you. Before we begin with any shared contemplation or poetry, I'd like to just have a few moments of shared silence. And in this silence, let's make use of this time to find an opening to calm inside of our bodies, settling in. And to do that, I think that it's always best to begin with just taking a look around. Instead of just coming into a situation with our agenda already full steam ahead, I think it's a good thing to step in and see what's happening. It's something that I wasn't really well practiced in, and I'm still working on this, is to remember that what we have to offer is interdependent upon what is happening in the place where we stand. It's not always beneficial or helpful to bring what it is we think is going to make a situation better or gentler or more compassionate if we don't first sit with what is. And that is both what is happening inside of our bodies and inside of our experience, as well as what's happening outside of our bodies with others' experience. So these few moments of a quiet space can help us have a little bit of internal reflection to see what it is we can look at in the mirror of our practice and see where we might need a little spit shine here or there to clear up our vision. So let's begin just in a simple silence. And as you begin to feel your body start to relax into your breath and your mind settle into the practice, notice the small shifts in your emotional state and your mental state, and the small shifts in your physical presence. All of these, even most subtle of shifts, are significant. I read a Japanese parable on taking the wrong train. And the proverb that came from it was, the longer you wait to get off of the wrong train, the more expensive the return trip will be. And I think the reason this is coming up for me is thinking about that subtle change, that subtle shift in my mental state or my emotional state or even my physical state. Uh, how that bit of departure from a path that I was on, a trajectory that I was on, can lead itself into a great amount of change throughout my day. Um, for example, I was just becoming aware that I had this tension in my chest that I was not really exhaling entirely. And I think probably it's been that way for most of the morning, maybe for days. Um, but in that few moments of stillness and silence, I was able to feel a release in my breath that allowed me to exhale more fully. This seems like a very small thing to some, but recognizing that I'm already starting to feel one, that I have been holding on to something. And so now I have before me uh, a mystery. What is it that I am grasping onto? Let's find out, Let's meet myself with love and curiosity and find out what it is that I'm holding on to. What am I afraid to let go of? But two, now that I am able to release, what is this opening going to allow in? And I think of that parable because sometimes I have a tendency, and maybe you do as well, to attach a level of forever or permanence to an emotional experience. You know, that um, dichotomous way of thinking, this is never or always, those kind of things. That's something that's a trick of our brain. Um, that our brain tries to match up with our central nervous system, and our central nervous system can be triggered into a certain state of being, uh, guardedness or a exhaustion because of our emotional state. Um, and so we can get into one moment. This is a really delicate tea. Um, this is a one bush oolong tea that I got from my friend Jesse, and there's something so special about the smell of this tea. Um, that way of stepping into a permanence, I think, lives inside of my chest and affects my breath. And that parable about taking the wrong train that leads to the proverb of it's never too, the longer you wait to get off of the wrong train, the more expensive the return trip will be. So what that's saying to me is it's an okay time right now to stop the trajectory you are on, and the longer you hold on to that trajectory that is not taking you in the direction of health or wellness or wholeness, uh, the longer it's going to take to get back. And when it says the more expensive the return trip will be, maybe that means that you will start to adopt behaviors to match your inner landscape as a survival mechanism, or as a coping mechanism. And in those behaviors, it may cost you uh, trust or gentleness, or sometimes relationships, sometimes jobs or opportunities can be lost because of behaviors that we develop to cope with the stress and the feelings of disconnection that we carry in our own body that we are unaware of. So, that little tiny shift in my breath in this morning practice may actually be quite significant. I was listening to a monk this morning that I listen to occasionally, and he was talking about um, the emotional state of fear as he was having his morning tea. And he talked about to come into right relationship with your fear. And I think about what that right relationship might look like to not be convinced or influenced to make those departures from the right train. When you're on the right train, uh, you don't need to get off. You don't need to have the return trip be the same, because when we're on our path, we aren't returning. We are moving into something new. It's only in my experience that when we are taking the path back into old ways, old behaviors, old emotions, do we sometimes get ourselves into trouble unless we are aware of what we're doing. And as this monk was sitting and having his tea, he was encouraging the practice of sitting with your fear. And this can sound very abstract or theatrical or performative until you let go of your inhibitions about what it may look like to speak about things that we don't see embody as valid things. We don't see a material aspect of fear, but it's a valid experience to have. Um, we don't see material aspects of most of our emotions, right? We see outcomes of behaviors and we see these things, but it's hard to think about sitting with your emotion the way that you would sit with a friend. But I think it's okay to let go of your worry about using your imagination. There's this idea that we get at some point that your imagination means it's fake. What a tragedy. What a tragedy that occurred when we were young, to think that being imaginative in the way we create our world means that we're pretending. And then we have to pretend that we don't imagine our worlds. We have to pretend that we don't create these situations. Um, so, using your imagination to sit with your emotions, to actually sit with, as if they are across the table from you sharing a cup of tea. It's a sound practice. So, I was practicing with this monk this morning, and um, it helped me to understand a few things. I'm not my emotions. Um, and that's a hard thing because as an emotional person, I often will define myself as an emotional person. Uh, but my emotions are not um, the definition of who I am. They are an experience that I can have. And my relationship to those emotions is going to gauge how that experience is going to look in any moment. And if my relationship to an emotion is one of rejection and pushing away or trying to change or trying to uh, eradicate, then my relationship to these things becomes one of dominance and control. And when we have a relationship of dominance and control, as soon as we start to understand that we might not be in control, we feel like we are out of control. And then the war begins. So this monk was sitting having tea with his fear. And I was moved. And so I wrote a poem. This morning's morning poem was inspired by this. When you arrived, it was not like the cherry blossoms, pink and soft and welcomed, but you tend to stay anyway, and I make space in my day where you, too, blossom open, a way to receive. As you eat, I am disappeared, consumed and consummated. Today, I pour my tea. I pour 2 cups. It is hot in my hand, so I will wait where you can join me. Please have a seat. And since you are here, please let me catch a breath. You must speak up over the clatter of my noisy heart. So, one of the practices that I've been missing in my day has been the bell hooks magic of Appalachian elegy. We began working through this beautiful set of poems a little over a month ago, I guess, maybe about a month ago. And it's been such an amazing journey into uh, synchronicities or understanding um, the universality of experience. And yeah, in this time of independence celebrations, um, which seems more to be codependence celebrations, uh, we seem to have a very unhealthy relationship to everything in this country. um, Not to be glum or to only have a singular negative view, but to understand that um, we can do the work to make relationships healthy. And it's difficult work. And it requires putting down our pride and um, not allowing our shame and our guilt to um, silence us in conversations, but to allow it to offer us humility. They don't often. They can often be the same thing. To shut your mouth and listen for a while, it can be very helpful, but um, to not let your fear of making a mistake um, guide you away from participating in healthy relationship is important. And I think that for many of us, we are afraid that we will say the wrong thing, so we end up saying no thing. Um, and when it comes to the relationship that we're having to structures of control and dominance that call themselves power in this world today, uh, it is not in right relationship to say nothing. It is not in right relationship uh, to think that we are independent of the systems of oppression. Um, and this extends everything from our political landscape to the food that we eat to the way that we have interpersonal relationships. This dominance and fear and control, these mechanisms of subjugation, they are ever present. And until we can start to move into interdependence as a way of understanding that place that I and you are dependent upon one another, not just for our survival, but for our joy and for our sorrow and for our healing. Uh, and be willing to make mistakes and um, be accountable when we cause harm. Sometimes our shame takes us away from doing that. Um, so, as we are celebrating these days of independence right now, to read through bell hooks work is such an amazing return to something um, far more connected than our ideas of what freedom looks like right now. Um, so let's take another lesson from Bell Hooks in Appalachian Elegy. This book is 66 single page parts of a poem dedicated to her Appalachian home. This is number 16. Go high up, climb to the very top, and look out. Remnants of majesty remain here where soldiers stand watching their gods die. What will be given in return for shelter, an end to hunger, sanctuary? Look from the mountain tops. An army of broken promises, land invaded then left, as though there were no other way to claim belonging. Look from the mountaintops, an army of broken promises, land invaded then left as though there were no other way to claim belonging. It's amazing. Hmm. Sorry, someone just came into the hall. What will be given in return for shelter and into hunger, sanctuary? Look from the mountaintops, an army of broken promises, land invaded then left as though there were no other way to claim belonging. So, what way do we belong? In what way have we learned to belong? What way have we learned to fit in or to get what we need? What have we learned that is not working? The longer you wait to get off the wrong train, the more expensive the return trip will be. So what is being given in exchange for these things? As we've gone down this wrong path, this path of separate grocery bills and separate power bills and separate homes and separate communities, on separate cars, on separated roads, separated from the land, separated from one another, peoples separated by walls and borders and fences around our hearts, when we can't even fall in love without fear, without shame. So sit with me. Let's take a breath. Breathing in through the nose to the bottom of the belly. I guess if I had a prayer today, it would be just to say thank you for this moment to come together. Thank you for this opportunity in this encounter to witness the ways in which we have traded off our joys for security. And may you and I and each of us find a bit of one another's joy and offer it back freely. Here's some joy. And we can make our way off of this train and return. Amen. Thanks for coming today. Thanks for being here, friends. It's good to be back on this cushion and in this meditation hall. I'm going to tend to the person waiting patiently outside of the door. May you have a breath today. Hari Om.